So I'll just do a ping, give everyone a few minutes to roll in. Open this up first. So like the Vicks bit they gave you is just like Hall's mints.
It's just like a pink liquid that you drink, and I guess it just sits there. I'm washing it down. I'm not sure if you're supposed to chase your Vicks, but I'm chasing it like it's Jägermeister. I don't know. I don't know what's going on.
Oh, I've never had that.
I mean,
You said it's pink stuff?
yeah, but they're
Oh.
well, it's like red. I guess pink is what is that pink stuff that people drink?
Pepto-Bismol.
Yeah, what is that for?
That's for like heartburn, indigestion stuff.
You
Stomach
know, I,
issue.
I I think I probably had. Wait a minute, heartburn is a stomach issue.
I meant this well as general stomach issues.
See, because there's a lot of confusion with terminology. Because when people say stomach issues, they mean shitting issues, isn't it? I mean, the
uh,
stomach. If
yeah,
someone
like
says I'm
upset
having,
stomach.
yeah, but it doesn't feel bad in your stomach. It feels bad because you have diarrhea or something.
Uh, it's I don't know. I like that this is a weird thing to be discussing, but
Mm.
the calm before the storm, the stomach issue you get before you have diarrhea sometimes.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, like that kind of thing. Um,
See, I think at the point of diarrhea, I'm not a medical expert, but I feel like at least your body's trying. Like at least you're evacuating. Because I've always been really averse to throwing up, just because
Mm.
it seems completely unnatural. You lose all control, and I just don't have trust in the process. But I guess typically after you throw up, like 9 times out of 10, you feel way better immediately afterwards, right?
Yeah, usually. I've always had that problem where I've known friends like that, like college. You know, you know, they'd always rally. They'd just puke and they'd be good to go. I always had an issue.
Yeah.
I mean, like, yeah, I drank a lot in college. Like, I was there. Um,
Mm.
but I rarely got to the point of puking because if I did, like, I was also like, my body would try to prevent me from puking. So you get that, like, like gut tightening when you're about to puke. And then I would like involuntarily try to keep it down. And that, so
Yeah,
it'd just be
I'm with
it's
you.
not fun.
Yeah, puking for me is like a loss. That would be like something bad and unenjoyable that I don't want to. And also, how do you breathe? Like, no one ever taught me how to breathe during puking. This is a lesson I never learned, and I just don't feel safe. I think I'm way behind the curve on like average pukes, um, for a human life, and I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but um, I mean, I know people who try to encourage puking. They try to bring it about. I mean, they're that pro puking, and I'm just not
Yeah.
about it. Especially the bile, whatever the acidic flavoring that comes up
Ugh.
out of you. It feels like the blood of an alien from the movie Alien. Like it just I can't believe that comes from within me, and it's really disturbing. So basically, we are gross and we are biological, and we're all gonna die. Um,
Yeah.
so anyway, how's your day?
Uh, Pretty good. Been pretty quiet. Mostly being
Yeah,
at home. I was planning on doing a lot of cleaning, and then I didn't because I don't like
are,
cleaning.
are you
So
social distancing?
yeah.
Are you in an area that's been hit hard by the corona?
Uh, it hasn't been hit hard, but it's a small city. Realistically, it's a large town.
Uh-huh.
But just the area where I live, like if you got 40,000 people, whoa, that's a city. Um, so it's really a large. I mean, a large town, and there have been a couple confirmed cases in the town.
Wait a minute.
So
You live in a town less than 40,000?
I think it's about 40,000. They call it a city.
Okay. That's crazy because I come from big cities, and I for a couple years I was living in a what I thought was a small German town, but it has like 300,000 people, which is, I guess it's pretty big. But
No,
yeah,
where I am, the downtown area buildings are like 3, maybe 4 stories high, and you can walk
uh,
from one end of the strip to the other in like 5 or 10 minutes or less. Maybe less than
I get
5.
I guess it's all where you are because you never really get to feel the full weight of a city unless you're in some, the center of London or something. Because I lived in LA, but it was a suburb of LA, so you didn't feel the weight of all the masses.
Yeah.
But it's still a delicate balance. What's the ideal city size? Because it's never really discussed, and it's all just personal preference, but there clearly are some objective answers with that, I would imagine.
Yeah, one of the things, I mean, this is really old-fashioned thing. One of the things I've always found interesting is, I remember reading, shoot, I was younger, and this was like when we started, I think it was high school, reading about like Constitution and whatnot. So we read some of the things that the old guys, the founders, wrote. I remember a few of them, in particular Jefferson, thought that the city corrupts, like inherently, like cities lead to moral degradation.
Hmm.
And I mean, I don't know if that's actually true, but I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like
I think there's something to like smaller areas being more in some way. I don't know.
I would say moral accountability and social accountability die off when you have a large enough city where everyone's anonymous. Speaking of which, tonight, I believe, is the premiere of Westworld season 3, where they will be taking a look at Los Angeles in 2050, I want to say, which will just be interesting from a sci-fi perspective on what that would look like because we've seen LA in the future in what Blade Runner, what was that Sly Stallone one with with that black dude, the cops in the future, they
Oh, I
freeze the
know that
dude.
one. This
Yeah,
is the one where he gets the fines and he uses them for
yeah.
toilet paper.
Sandra Bullock before she got older. But yeah, LA plus time does not look good. I don't think in any uh, creative writer's vision, and they probably have good reason for that because LA present is not that good. So future's not looking bright. Now I had a question about the size of a Discord. What is a small Discord? What is a medium-sized Discord?
I think it's all relative to what you're doing. Um,
So you are larger now than ever before, and you're at 12,000.
yes, actually pretty happy about that. It's kind of
You're
cool.
happy. You passed the threshold of 10, and you're on your way to 100. Is that the idea?
I mean, honestly, like for us, it's not really like. I mean, it's one of those things. The numbers is kind of cool. It's like a pat on the back, but I mean, there for this sphere for like political servers, most of them are about 200 to 1,000 members. The really big
Uh-huh.
ones are 5,000 to like 20,000, and I
Okay.
think right now we're by size only we're the third largest. Um, but
In what
most of
category?
our in politics.
It seems like politics is a umbrella term because you pretty much talk about everything.
Yeah, we do talk about pretty much everything, but it's one of those things. From what I've seen, most social Discord servers, um, they treat politics as like taboo and it's something that might come up, but
Mm,
also it's rare that it does come up, and a lot of them will just say like, no, we don't want to talk politics.
mhm.
Um,
How much engagement does this one have, and how do you track that?
so there are bots that can track it. There's one called StatBot,
Uh-huh.
um, and that basically just have to enable permissions in each channel, and it will track how many messages and text, and it tracks voice minutes. Um,
Okay.
so you can get some idea of the long term, like how many people are actually in voice chat and what.
And what about the politics Discord? How big is that one on the scene?
Which one?
Like it's called politics. I don't know. It's a big, massive
Oh, that one. I think right now that is the largest one. Um,
ever.
most of our members, I'm sorry, It's now no, this isn't true. When we were created, most of our staff were on that server, and we just left it because that used to be a smaller one, and
Uh-huh.
it, when it was small, the idea that was setting it apart is that it was supposed to be more civil. One of the problems with political servers in general is they tend to be really toxic, which
Oh,
the kind of nature of our discussions brings in a lot of toxic stuff. But it was
yeah.
something that was trying to be more civil, and
Mhm.
then there are a few different things that changed, and honestly, it just became like a fascist cesspit. Like we just got
Really?
so annoyed because I mean this isn't even a joke. Um, like I would hear a couple times a day, some middle of some conversation, some guy would go, "But did you guys know that the Jews?" And it's just
Yeah.
so fucking annoying. It's like half that server is just fascist bullcrap.
I mean, I think that was a fad too, especially during the time period we're talking about, where it was everything is the Jews' fault, and yeah, it's toxic and it's boring and it's predictable. See, because I've done an AMA with the politics people, and I remember they brought on a bunch of dudes. I was like arguing with fundamentalists and creationists, and
Oh.
it was, yeah, it was a memory. I think I blocked it out. It was that traumatic for me. But how many users do they have?
I think they're about 20,000 now.
Oh, only 20,000.
Hmm.
Oh wow, I thought it might have been some massive number. So I guess it's similar to what we're talking about with the most ideal size for a city. What is the most ideal size for a Discord, especially if you're trying to, you know, create a community of normal people that can actually function and not geek out on whatever it is. Um, I find it difficult. I don't even know how big my Discord is, but I think it's quality rather than quantity for sure.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Yeah. It's more important to have some place where you have good quality stuff going on. Good discussions that, I mean, like I
I
was saying,
mean,
go ahead.
no, I'm just saying. Look at the way we create our lives. You choose one partner. You have one companion, unless you're like some poly whatever swinger, and then you have like two friends. I think the average people have like two or three friends that they're actually considered to be, you know, close to. And then you have one family, one immediate family. It's very small. And so this idea of spreading yourself out, and also who has time to curate new people, that takes forever. And you're
Mhm.
sitting there looking for red flags, and it's just you're going with your intuition. You got a dog somewhere in the back, huh?
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that.
No, it's okay.
Just, usually I can't stand sitting the whole day. So I'll walk around the house and he just sees me walking and he gets excited. He thinks that something's going to happen.
Is
But
is he an old timer or is he a pup?
he looks like a pup, but
Hmm.
he just technically became a senior dog. He's 7 now.
Nice.
He's the, I don't know if you've seen on our YouTube. I think our profile picture is his face.
Oh, I have not. I did
Um,
see that hammer and sickle, and I'm noticing that blue politics. Does that mean democratic, or what am I to take from the word blue?
um, most people that come on think that my dog's name is Blue. Um,
So nothing to do with the Democratic Party. Just
no.
okay, interesting.
I've been told that we're more of a left-leaning Discord. I think the biggest groups we've got are, um, yeah, libertarians and liberals or communists. Um, our rules here, just because like we went from, I don't know what it is about the internet. I guess it makes sense now that I'm thinking about it, but I was just gonna say there's not. Sorry, Doug. There's not that many conservatives online, and I think it
Mm,
just makes sense because the people that are online are mostly under 30, and that's
I
a
see.
age group that's not very conservative.
So libertarians, communists, and what was the other one?
Liberals, I guess,
Liber-
just general people left of center.
left of center. That's a liberal. Okay.
Yeah, I think colloquially, does that sound right?
I mean, yeah, the terms get shifted around, and the teams get shifted around because you want to identify as like I don't know. People identify as just it takes forever to figure out where someone is, um, and it seems to be ever shifting. So I
Mhm.
take a lot of shit because I'm on the left and I'm online, and that's all. That's all you need to do. Just be on be on the left and be online and take shit. And it's an unnatural thing because I come from a world where I would hang around with people that are in my group, and like-minded people. So it is both exciting and awkward to be hanging around with people who are not in my group. It's like
Mhm.
it was never meant to be. I'm not saying it's the best way to live your life, but it avoids friction. And I think gaining pleasure and avoiding pain is sort of the base impulse. And
Right.
it can be a massive headache just to deal with friggin' Spurgs, like day in, day out. Like, why would you do that? Why would you sign up for that? Speaking of Spurgs, what kind of questions do you have for me?
Well, it's actually there's a question I want to ask you. What you just said seems to kind of nullify it. What I had heard from there were a couple of people that were asking us to get you on, and they had said that you're a conservative who's an atheist. And when I looked around, that seemed to be a very broad consensus that you're a conservative and an atheist, and that's what makes you interesting because conservatives tend to not be atheists. But you're not a conservative, you say.
Well, rendering me completely uninteresting. So it's a miracle that I've had my self-esteem been so strong up until this very point. Yeah, no, I'm not a conservative in any way, shape, or form. Some of the confusion could come because I disagree with the far left.
Mhm.
So I have a common friend, or me and conservatives have a common enemy, which is the far left. And I feel like there are certain topics that it's just ridiculous to have political tribal allegiance to a talking point. So
Mhm.
a few big ones: religion, race. I don't see coronavirus. That's another one. Why is that political? Why is there a Democratic versus Republican stance to take on this virus? Why can't you think independently and just have your have your opinion and defend it? It seems to me as very weak, very like herd mentality. And so, yeah, I'm not conservative, but I think some of my audience, like half my audience, is conservative, and so they tend to try to adopt me because they like me, and 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 it's just like, okay, well, I'll see you at the voting polls. I'm going to be voting Democratic as usual. That being said, I scream and yell at the problems I see within the Democrat Party, and I'll be the first to tell you that having a two-party system is a joke, and other countries do it way better than us. And it's even the all or nothing mentality of the presidency. It's a winner take all type of a scenario. I know we have the Congress to kind of mitigate that a bit, but it just seems all not thought out and not ideal. But I'm also not a political junkie, and I don't think most people are. I think it's just happens to be content. It's just people are
Mhm.
craving content, and if you have a year-long soap opera going on, people are just gonna watch it. It could just as easily be something else, though.
I also think that's funny because you say you're not a political junkie, but so this happens to me a lot. When I was watching YouTube, really was mostly like 2013 to 2015, and then and around 2016, then I dropped off for a few years. So there's a lot of people that were popping up during that time who I have no clue about,
Mm.
and there's a lot of YouTubers that are actually big, and people ask when get someone on, and I just have no clue. And I hadn't heard of you before this. I had a point. This was actually a really interesting thing, and I just lost my train of thought. Happens
It's okay.
sometimes. I'm sorry.
Not a problem. Yeah, I will
um,
while you think on that, I'll reflect on the fact that a person doesn't know who I am, how it makes me feel emotionally. Um, yeah, I
oh, sorry. I
yeah,
was just you were saying that you're not a political junkie,
yeah.
but most like yeah, I just know a huge bunch of political junkies that are familiar with your stuff. They love it or hate it, but
Hmm.
I mean, you wouldn't call yourself a political junkie, but would you say it's accurate that a lot of your fans are political junkies?
I mean, they're masquerading as such. I mean, I think any idea, if you discuss anything that's happening in culture, um, on some level, you're trying to influence people and change people's minds. So there is a political nature to that, but it's not the boring side of politics. It's not C-SPAN. I'm trying to be more entertaining than that. You say that people hate me. That seems very ridiculous. Imagine knowing me and hating me. How does that work? Why would you? Let's say you met me and you hated me. Why would you continue that relationship, even if it's a one-way viewership type scenario? Just so
Well,
bizarre.
what I see that happens a lot is people have their camps, their groups, right?
Hmm.
And it's not, maybe I misspoke earlier. It's not like, fans or followers that seem to hate you, but a lot of people know you who are political junkies and they have strong opinions. What I notice a lot is that it's often there's this little bit, like, you might have like, 100, 1,000 videos, and people saw this one or two
Mm,
videos. Maybe someone else clipped it out of context and did like, a hit piece, and so they know about that, and then they have very strong opinions about you, and it seems to be very much, shallow. It's like, I heard this one little bit and I don't
yeah,
like them because I disagree very strongly.
right. I mean, this is part of the spurgy, cancerous nature of the internet. I mean, whenever you're a content creator, you are now what they consider to be a public target. And even though I'm just a private person making something that just hundreds of thousands of people enjoy and have enjoyed for years, so it seems like a massive win from my perspective. It funded my entire life. But yeah, with that will come opposition, but it's to be expected. I mean, if I come out and I say I'm pro-abortion, guess what? You just inherited 100 billion or 100 million enemies, or whatever that number is. If I say I'm an atheist, oh, guess what? The religious people aren't stoked about it. So I just, I am not trying to pussyfoot. I choose topics that are intentionally controversial. I mean, I gravitate to those because no one else is. And so that's where I feel there's a need to speak out. I mean, I could just do, look, hey, I'm doing Westworld fandom, and we're going to talk Westworld, and we're going to talk about conspiracy theories, and isn't it a great show? And I'm critical of episode 2, but episode 4 is better. I mean, even those people get hate, by the way. There's hate just everywhere. Like, it's crazy. And at this point, though, I'm a bit of a veteran when it comes to receiving hate. So I'm not affected by it like I once was. I just sort of laugh and shrug. I've reached a critical mass of positive support, both
Mhm.
financial and just viewership, that I'm just like, cool, man. Uh, Thanks for your negativity. I'm just going to go over here, be positive, but nice. I mean, I think honestly, what you see, the behavior of people online is a testament to the fact that no one can afford therapy. I know that they have that, what's that called? Help, the online help thing. There's a new website for it, but I mean, even that costs a bunch of money. And so what people do is they just rage online and they pick targets and they just yell into the night because they're not having sex. And there's a huge truth to that. Um, we have to deal with the fallout. Anonymity plus sexual dissatisfied lives plus lives of quiet misery equals people are going to rage at you, and I'm fine with it. I just bounce. That's why I'm not reading your chat right now. That's why I won't read through all my comments ever. That's why I don't watch hate videos about me. I used to be like, whoa, somebody talked about me. Let me digest every second of that and respond. And now it's just like, no, why? It's a total waste of time.
All right. So I lost track of time. Let's jump into questions here.
Yes, sir.
So let's see. These, of course, it's AMA. These will be scattered. They'll be all over the place with each one. So the first one, Denzel asks, "Is there a benefit to having religion, however small, in the?"
It's a loaded question, and I like the fact that he didn't say if he's religious or not. But yeah, there's benefits to a lot of things. It doesn't mean it's the right. And by the way, let me just state that I don't ever think about religion or talk about religion. Not on my channel, not in my private life. So this is a major departure for me to even discuss religion because it's a non-factor in my life. It's like, I mean, it's just not something I deal with on a daily basis. But yes, there are good aspects to it, just like there are good aspects to the military. For a young man who's disorganized, has no guidelines, no discipline, yeah, go to the military. Now, does that mean the military is just net good, just awesome, hooray? We should all join the military. No, there are downsides to the military too. But yeah, religion can set people on a certain path. They can occupy their time with more I don't even want to say productive, but less destructive things. I mean, ultimately, I think it's an insult to the to humanity because I think it's all built on a false premise and it's all a lie and it's a joke. But it's kind of a low bar to set to say, okay, yeah, technically religion provide community, and so that's a good thing. But it's such a cop out because you can find community elsewhere, and it really is not that difficult. I mean, look at you guys. You have a Discord here. I'm always saying that people are trying to build community. They pop up out of nothing. People are desperate to find belonging. I mean, I have a community in my YouTube channel. I did not create a YouTube channel to create a community, but that is what has happened. You guys went out of your way to say, look, we're going to have a community, but you have this weird challenge of what is this based on? What is it? Politics? What does that even mean? It's like a general thing. Is it a commie hangout? Is it a libertarian place? Is it liberals? What if I'm a Republican? So you don't have hard, fast rules, and yet you still want to nurture a community, but you also realize it can get cancerous and blown up, and it can all just crumble down. So yeah, finding communities that are based off, I don't know, shared interests. It's a real open question how to find friend groups online. Ever since the MySpace days, Facebook days, where they said, "Oh, these are my friends." You're my friend. You're barely an acquaintance. So where's that evolved to? What is the current version of that? Someone that you like some of their tweets? Are you friends? Feel like we're all struggling to find an answer to that. And I think Discord actually has been a game changer on that regard because of the voice chat and because of the immediacy and the ever presence of it, the ease at which you can communicate and build relationships. So I think we're right on the cusp of maybe a new phase of actual legit friendships online based on something rather than these artificial concoctions.
All right. And related, Bandy wants to know when, if ever, do you think will a
You cut out.
oh, I'm sorry. Bandy asked, when,
Uh-huh.
if ever, do you think we will see a fully atheist world?
I believe that questioner misspelled the word atheist, which is alarming. And yeah, first of all, there are no absolutes. Only the Sith deal in absolutes. It's not even a goal. Like, if you know humans at all, you know they're stupid. There's probably still some people thinking World War II is still going on. I mean, there's half these humans haven't even invented the wheel. They wouldn't have invented the wheel or written language on the. So I don't have that much faith in humanity as a whole. But in terms of the elite, the educated, I mean, we're already there. If you break down atheism, and you look at the numbers, you look at the trends, we're going in the right direction. I believe you know, the word is out, the secret is out. There's too much information out there. The only problem is that the fact that we find ourselves in a situation of having mortality, having a expiration date, is terrifying, and it's as terrifying now as it ever has been. And the next generation that comes up and grapples with this existential um, dilemma is going to be frightened, and we are scared. Look what the coronavirus has exposed in us. Rightfully, by the way, that there's cause to be scared, but it is a reminder that we are these biological organisms that do not go on forever. And psychologically and emotionally, that is a terrifying prospect. You're staring into oblivion. And to pry people off of this idea that they're going to live on forever, to actually, no, you're not. You're going to die, and it's going to be oblivion. That's a hard sell, a very hard sell, because you're not selling them anything. There's no selling points to that truth. It's not like, here, buy my product because why? Because you hate that it's true and that it's a very miserable fate that you are destined to play out. This is very difficult. So people have to come to it from a place of wanting to live in accordance with reality as opposed to just wanting to feel good. And most people just want to feel good. Um, go take a look at drug users. Why do you think they're doing drugs? For their health? No, it's because they know it's bad for them. They don't care. They want to feel good.
All right. Whiskey Renegade asks, would you cut military spending? Specifically, what would you do with the extra money?
It's a solid question, and We are on the brink of, if like a Bernie would get in, he would probably go in there with a machete to cut it. And yes, I think cutting military spending is wise. Scaling back all of our bases around the world, it seems completely overkill. The military industrial complex is a real thing. I think we could easily still have a very strong military capable of dealing with every threat posed and still save a ton of money with this. I think it's just gotten way out of control. And what the norm is today, it's never even questioned. People don't even consider cutting the military. But an obvious place to put that funding would be in finding a cure for baldness. No, it would be in healthcare, healthcare for starters. But I mean, shit. I would be fascinated to take a look at like here are the top 10 things that need money, but we don't have any money, but we could use the money. Um, I'm sure Greta and AOC would have you spend it on, I don't know, energy grids and solar and saving the planet. And you could spend this money easily. I remember when $1 million seemed like a unthinkable amount of money. People can spend $1 million in like a weekend. It's not, you can cut through that very fast. So yeah, curing disease, that would be nice. Oh, there's some other good ones though too. Totally underfunded. Well, I'm a big Planned Parenthood guy, just because I think population control is something that's never discussed, and we definitely don't want to be having unwanted children. But SETI, what about the NASA people? They've taken massive funding cuts. The problem is you have to do like a triage situation here, and you're competing with the priorities of where you spend this money, and that's where politics matter. I mean, politics really is who controls the budgets, because money is power, and that's in the end really all that matters, because it has an immediate impact on whether things get done or they just don't.
All right. Next question we've got here is from Roger Moore. He asks, is there any truth towards the idea that contentment is more valuable than happiness?
Yeah, I saw this question before. I think it's splitting hairs, and it really the answer to that question, or any question, is basically like, what's the meaning of life? It's like, what do you consider to be happiness? Don't trust Webster, because the word contentment, all it means is, I mean, it has happiness in its own definition, but it also includes the word satisfaction. And, what is satisfying to you versus me? People navigate through their lives in such a way where they're trying to peak out on the balance of what can I do this day or this week that's going to make me feel gratified. I'm not going to have any regrets. Is it just eat as much candy? Because when I was a kid, I thought that might have been an answer to that question. Every day's Halloween. Or just go out and get candy. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's human contact. Maybe it's intellectual pursuits. Maybe it's the act of creation. I need to be a part of a project, working with people, trying to make others happy. Maybe making the world a slightly better place. Even all these bleeding heart far leftists, they think that way. They think I'm going to better the world. I'm going to help people. I'm going to stop feline AIDS, stuff like that. So it's deeply personal. There is no answer to that question. Definitely not an objective answer. But subjectively, you might want to. A lot of people find an answer uh, in the reverse way. They find out what is not giving them contentment. So the job you currently have is not satisfying. You are not happy. And so you just bounce around like a pinball until you find something that's slightly better and slightly better. And you go about it that way. But we always have our head on a swivel, and we're always looking at, our neighbors, keeping up with the Kardashians type of a thing, where you think, maybe that guy is more satisfied than I am. Look at this guy. He's taking pictures. He's out on a ski slope. He's banging chicks. Like, what is that what I'm supposed to be doing? Or maybe it's that guy. He seems to have an amazing timeline, and everyone's advertising how happy and content they are. But there is no answer. And so it's always a guessing game. But the people that have figured it out for themselves, you can tell. You can see how they carry themselves. They're not in a constant crisis as to, am I doing it right? They just seem to have an internal knowledge that they are.
All right. Hallam Dog Says UK citizen here. Currently, the policy towards coronavirus is herd immunity. The prospect of infecting 90 million of the population is daunting and unpopular. What do you think is wrong with decision making in these key areas?
Yeah, I don't know how that idea got out. Maybe some official floated it and it got a lot of traction. The idea of infecting everyone intentionally doesn't seem good at all. I think we're flattening the curve of how this thing spreads, I think is the better way to go, just because the hospitals can't take it. And I mean, eventually it'd be great if people are, they get it and survive it and are not subject to it anymore. But England has been doing pretty good overall. I've just taken a glance at the numbers. I'm down here in Brazil. We got like less than 100 cases, 0 deaths. And I'm about to go to Argentina. They got 34 cases, 2 deaths. I mean, yeah, that can change, but hopefully not. Hopefully they're taking precautions. And this news has spread far and wide. Imagine if the coronavirus came before the internet and you're just waking up in the morning reading your daily paper and you're like, huh, thousands are dead. Interesting. We got a friggin' plague heading our way. But right now we have real time tracking and I would hope and I would think that this is going to have an impact on the severity with which this thing spreads. So, yeah, the herd immunity, we got to tap the brakes on that. That's not the way to go. But man, it is a scary prospect. And the one thing I will say worth mentioning is I'm so sick of people, young people, who are like, "Yeah, man, you guys are panicking. You're freaking out. What's the big deal, man? You're just gonna get a mild sickness. You're gonna get over it. Death rate's 0 point whatever." And they ignore the fact that they have parents and grandparents and people who are susceptible to this. People with lung conditions. Half of those Chinese men that died, they're all smokers. Do you know anyone that smokes? I do. I have people with lung issues all around me. So I worry about them. And that's, I think, the real echo effect of my anxiety and concern. It's not just for me, it's for everyone, literally everyone I love. And I'm not in control of protecting them. So I think it's a very valid thing. I think the impulse to mock people who are concerned about death is is odd. It's like a weird flex. It's a weird W. Like they need to do something more productive with their lives.
Right. So I asked you this one beforehand. Bashar al-Assad writes, "What is your response to Vosh dunking on you?
Hmm.
Also, why did you back out of a debate with him despite suggesting it?"
Okay. Uh, fascinating. I just watched large segments of the conversation between Vosh and Ralph Retort, which
Oh,
is idiocy on a level. I mean, I just feel bad for the Zoomers. I just feel bad. Like these are the people that you're promoting or highlighting. Vosh is a caricature of. I mean, it's almost not worth insulting him because, like, he's just sort of a living embodiment of every insult you could ever muster for a guy. Like he is. I'm thinking of the dude from Beavis and Butthead, that teacher, that okay, that guy. That guy looks like a Chad compared to this dude. He is embarrassing. He is a fart sniffing wannabe intellectual. He thinks that talking fast, well, it doesn't surprise me. He learned from Destiny. Talking fast equals being smart. This guy goes around calling people Nazis. He called me a Nazi. What the fuck is he talking about? It's just like, it seems like theater of the absurd. And Ralph Retort goes after this guy's girlfriend and he threatens to dox her and stuff, which is, reprehensible and stupid. But, you know, what Vaush is, he's going after Ralph Retort and he's mocking him for going through a divorce and shit, making it all personal. It is absolutely a useless expenditure of time to talk to people like this. What is gained? What is the point? So the whole idea of debate him, I went into his chat because there was like, I don't know, 10,000 people mocking me. And I'm sitting there walking around the beaches of Copacabana going, "Oh, there's 10,000 people insulting me. Interesting." So I go and look and I'm just trolling the chat. And I'm joking with the guy going, "Debate me, you won't debate me," because that's their cringy little culture of debate me, bro. What is to gain from that? I would rather set fire to my eyebrow. Why for me to talk to someone? See, you came at me with respect. That's why I'm talking to you now. If I don't like someone, or if I'm not given respect, why would I spend my time engaging with that person? This is so obvious; it doesn't need to be said. This is how you do your regular life, IRL. You don't just seek out people who are cunts to engage with them. What the fuck? What that would say about you is there's something deeply wrong with you. You don't respect yourself. You don't respect your time. You have nothing better to do. After this, I'm gonna go take a walk on the beach, and then I'm gonna make a video. And you know what video I'm gonna make? Whatever I want. I'm gonna do any video I want, and it's gonna be watched and enjoyed by tens of thousands of people, and they're gonna pay me for doing it. So if I could do that, that could be my life. Why would I deviate from that to deal with some homo, just some grotesque, fat, angry, just joke of a man? Why would I do that? I never would. And that's the answer. And that is a message from Generation X to Generation Go Fuck Yourself.
All right. Another hot question here. Don asks, "What's your favorite type of beer?"
I had a Heineken last night. I'm not a beer guy. I I like things that taste good, and I would generally say beer does not taste good. I never was raised drinking soda. My father is English. He never bought soda for me, and so I never had a liking for it, and it never made sense to me. I drank apple juice. I drank milk, orange juice, things like that. Au naturel. And beer, it's like a social norm. You go out, you drink it. It's cold. I guess that you could say that for it. But no, I'd prefer rum and Coke. I was a Jaeger guy back when I was drinking, and Kahlua and cream, which that does put me in the soy camp for a lot of people because it's not like whiskey on the rocks or some shit like that. But yeah, I just like things that taste good and hide the alcoholic content, which is in fact a poison.
Let's see. I'm not sure why this keeps coming up. There's a bunch of questions about having one leg. And
I know
it's,
that. I know this guy. Go ahead. What do you got? What does he got to say?
it's a bunch of different people. I think one was, would you rather have one leg or coronavirus? If you had to cut off one of your legs, which would it be?
hmm
Um,
These are valid. Okay. First of all, you have to specify: is it a mild case of corona? Because I thought I had corona last week, so I'm feeling confident with my ability to take on corona. That might be famous last words, but yeah, I think I value my legs, and if I had to choose a leg, I mean, my instinct would be to keep the right, but maybe I could be persuaded off of that one. It would suck badly, and it reminds me of my girlfriend who we're considering getting her knee surgery out in Germany because she can't run now. She has some structural damage in her knees. It's been an ongoing problem, and it was really highlighted because she was down here with me in Rio, and the first time we were in Rio, she would run. She would run on the beaches, and like I couldn't even keep up with her. And this time, she can't run. So it's such a shame when people lose their health, not just with your knees, and that our knees suck, by the way. Like whoever designed the knee. I mean, that's if you need proof that there's no God, just our knees, they blow. And I just feel bad for people who don't have their health. And I mean, seriously, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. That is, God, is that true? Especially when you get sick. I mean, just it is reinforced, and it's like, oh my God. So yeah, that would be my response.
uh, you mentioned you consider yourself a Democrat. I I grew up in a more Republican family, and my younger
Mm,
brother recently came out of the closet as a Democrat,
I'm
and
so, I'm
said
so
that he
sorry.
was
I'm sorry for your loss. Mm.
said he said he was supporting Pete Buttigieg. I'm
Mm.
curious. There are a couple of questions in the chat. Assuming everyone was still running, who would be your preferred candidate?
I was an Andrew Yang man from early on. Yang spoke to me. He's new blood. He has new ideas. He's a young man. He's a proven winner. He's solutions based dude. If you've ever been to his website, I mean, the comprehensive list of things he tackles, just new ideas, new takes on old problems. He's not divisive. He's not tribal. He's not identity politics type of a guy. Sometimes he would cater to the left because he was running as a Democrat, but he wasn't drenched in that ideology, and you could just tell the guy was. I'm looking forward to his future. I'm not done with Yang. So I don't know who Biden's VP will be, but it's probably going to be some black woman, knowing the state of the party right now. But I would love it to be Yang, and outside of him, yeah, I'm not really super thrilled about anybody, but there is still a spectrum. So even if you don't get your guy, you still have choices to make between two people that you don't like. That choice still matters to a great degree. So yeah, I'm no, I'm just I remember 2016 so well, and how it splintered the nation in a way that I don't think it did. Maybe Obama time was pretty divisive too, but I just feel like, for example, after Obama was elected, I basically took a deep breath and just said, "Cool, I don't have to worry about this. I don't have to think about this. I got a guy I trust in charge. I'm happy with it. The world's happy with it." And I like that. I like not having to, I don't know, keep up to date with the White House and each and every press conference and each and every flub and gaff and tweet. And it's just, who has the time for that? I don't know. I'd much prefer it to be boring and being handled by responsible adults.
All right. Frog Spawn gushes, I love you so much. Just want to say that you're so intelligent and ask, were you raised religious?
I am at the point in my internet career where I hear and I think he's trolling me. I'm like 98% sure that that's a
Oh,
troll job. Um, because somebody telling you you're intelligent, what the fuck? Okay, whatever. I am intelligent, but I didn't need you to tell me that. Anyway, so I just take issue with it. I don't trust it, and that's the secret lesson: is to not be affected by insults from random strangers online who are sexless, but also don't be affected by compliments. That's a harder one to learn. A lot of people fall into that pitfall. But Pitfall, by the way, a good game, video game. I believe ColecoVision or maybe Atari. What was the question?
were you raised religious?
Yeah, no, it was not really religious. I went to a religious elementary school. It was like me and a bunch of Jewish kids at a Catholic campus, and we'd go to church every Friday and sing songs, and that was about it. That was the deal. We could use the church for our school so long as we indoctrinated the kids once a week. But yeah, didn't buy any of it, and I think my whole religious upbringing was shaped by the loss of my mother at 5 years. So she died, and I was told she was in heaven, and come to find out that was a lie. And I was waiting for contact from her. My little child, surely my mother loves me, and she's in heaven, and there's God and all this power and all this love. Surely she can just drop me a line, right? And just say, "Hey, I'm in heaven. It's cool. I'll see you later. Enjoy your life." Something like that. It never came. So I realized early on that, um, yeah, I grew up pretty fast. When you're confronted with mortality, you'll find people mid 20s and they're like, "Oh, my grandmother in Indiana died and that sucked, but yeah, I haven't really thought about it that much." But when people are dropping like flies in your life, it's very traumatic, and it really forces you to confront mortality and your role in this world. I had a stepsister died a couple years later, and that sort of had a compounding effect. Two deaths at age 5 and age 8 for me were a lot. It was a lot to take on board, and so I was on the path of atheism from the start. Like I was never religious.
All right. Next question. Felgaraz asks, what do you think fascism is and what do you think of it?
I think it's embodied by the behavior and style of Ethan Ralph. No, fascism. Fascism. Fascism is. It's what they had in Spain. It's what they had in Italy. It's what they had in Germany. Today, fascism is just a word, a slur. Everyone's a fascist. It's one of the most overused words in existence. I think people have done studies on this where people just they don't even know what they're saying when they say it. Everyone's a fascist, just like everyone's a racist, and apparently everyone's a Nazi. So it's basically a meaningless term, I would say at this point. But I mean, there are signs of it. There's fascist-like tendencies. People have noticed that in Trump. I'm down here in Brazil. They would say that the president of Brazil is of that ilk, and I don't think it's that useful as like a term, a label, just to stick on someone and be like, "See, checkmate. I won the argument. You're a fascist. Good night. Tip your waiters." No, get specific. Be like, "Here's where this person is wrong. Here's where they're a power hungry. Here's where they're being authoritarian, and this is why I object to it. And here's what I recommend." Now that takes more work. It's far easier just to throw a label on someone, but I don't see it as that productive.
All right. So this next user's been around for a bit, and I don't know what this question is referring to. I just assume you do.
Yes.
Bystander Crux says, "Great job on David Silverman interview the other day. Do you think the atheist community in general is becoming more and more woke? And what can we do to prevent more cases like Silverman's?"
Oh, yeah. Um, the atheist community I detected early on was not my community. The fact that we're both atheists, it's like saying I'm part of the right-handed community of the world. It's like it's true, we're both right-handed, but our differences are far more significant than this one random commonality that we have. And it's part of a greater trend, which is woke culture, SJW, this sort of, intersectional feminism, all that crap, all of that, white guilt, all those communities, they tend to be the same people. And atheism was no better. The Atheist Plus movement was a complete mess. And it was this idea that we should have a community based on, being allies to trans and people of color and Black Lives Matter. And they had all these ideas they tried to shoehorn into atheism, which was such a backward, retarded idea. It just sullied the whole point of, I don't know, skepticism and the idea of, no, this is the one topic we agree on. Let's not muddy it with your bullshit agenda. So, yeah, Dave Silverman learned it the hard way. And I am here to tell you that I would say by default, most women are regressive. Most women fall into this camp. And I am somewhat optimistic, though. I think people can be talked off the ledge. I don't think they ever have given that a chance, though. So you can explain these things to people, and they're not totally obtuse. They understand the logic. If you explain the wage gap, if you explain black crime rates or something like that, um, it's just no one has the time or patience to go and do that, especially not on a large scale. And what you have to realize is they believe the things they believe, and it goes back to what I was saying with drug use because it makes them feel good. That's why they believe these things. And so that's why you feel a gravity pulling against you when you're trying to talk to someone about an issue where you're like, you're clearly wrong on this. And it doesn't make sense. Why are you this wrong? How could you live with this cognitive dissonance? And it's because they've made deals with themselves and they're cool with living a lie. Because, I mean, none of us live in some absolute state of truth. We're all sort of telling each other stories at some point. And they figure, look, this is the story I'm telling myself, and this is how I want to view the world. So screw off with your stupid facts and your truth. I don't want to hear it. I don't know if that answered the question, but that was a thought I had.
That's fine.
Mhm.
Uh, Josie wants to know, where do you find between progressive and SJW?
Did you were coming in and out? Did you say progressive in SJW?
Yes.
I mean, they're one and the same. I guess SJW would imply that they're more active. They would call themselves activists. They would be warriors. They would be out protesting. Who was that chick that just busted into a Bernie Sanders speech and was talking to, or was it Joe Biden? And she's like, "Kill dairy. Dairy's terrible." That's an SJW. Progressives, it's all code word. I mean, it's all skewing just to young people, young idealistic people. I find it ridiculous. Very happy to call progressives regressives because I mean the simplistic propaganda of the choice of using the word progressive and saying, "Hey, we believe in progress. We're progressive. If you're against us, you're against progress." It's just it's just asinine and it's insulting. And oh, what are you? You're a establishment Democrat? You're a moderate? You're a moderate. Who wants moderation? Ew. Don't you want to be a cool kid? Far left is the new punk. Man, everyone should be far left. Revolution, man. It's just so it's all cock-a-poo poo. And if they want to play word games, I'll just play word games right back at 'em.
All right. Dreaded Acolyte asks, is there anyone you know who used to be a regressive and has changed their thinking thanks to you and others pointing out the insanity of the far left? And what beliefs do you see as a sign that someone is beyond rational argument?
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, there's many people throughout my tenure as a YouTuber. I've had many emails. You change my mind on things. I see things in a different way now. I know people personally who have told me this. They've made videos about it. Just had a conversation with a far left girl, Karen, this redheaded chick, and she came at me saying, you know, "Oh, you're a racist and you're terrible. You're this and that." And we had a long conversation, and now we're like friends. And I've convinced her of a few things, and she's made me think about things in a different way. And we've had interesting and useful conversations. So there is, and by the way, a lot of this is just trying. People don't try. There's no energy or effort invested into having your positions challenged or changed because that's fundamentally kind of a chaotic act. It's throws off the balance, throws off your equilibrium. You would like to think you're right, so why would I even go around engaging in debates on these things? It just seems weird and counterintuitive. As far as um, someone who has gone too far and they're beyond help, sometimes you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but I think old people are just generally smarter than younger people. Um, and young people seem to be radicalized in a way. They're kind of like a pit bull once they get a. And the thing is, it's all reinforced with their social group. So it's not just the thing. So if I could argue with someone about the guilt of the Central Park Five, and thoroughly convinced, you lock me in a room with someone, give me 2 hours, they're going to understand that the Central Park Five are all guilty. But what does that do to their life? What does it do to their love life, their their Tinder prospects, their family life, their school life, the work? I mean, they cannot vocalize this because there are certain things in place that restrict you from believing things outside of what you're allowed to believe. And that's why these things become so tribal and it's identity based. It's not just an issue that you're being argued with about, it's you're challenging my identity and my social life and my success in life. I am this person and this is the thoughts I have on these topics and I cannot change from that. So don't even try. A lot of the time, I think was it Chris Hitchens that said it, maybe Sam Harris. People do not admit that they've had their mind changed in real time because they don't want to give up a loss like that. They'd consider that a cuck job. And so a lot of this happens quietly behind closed doors. And sometimes they're willing to admit who is responsible for changing their mind.
Uh, Bladhish wants to know what precautions do you think every country should be taking over this entire coronavirus thing?
I mean, I'm happy to see what we're doing in terms of we need to get more time. We can't have the exponential growth. So the social distancing on a personal level, I think, is a great move. Restriction of travel, it makes sense. If you can stay inside, stay inside. I think the MVPs are going to be the delivery people. So we need the food production to keep going. Outside of that, movie theaters, restaurants, sorry, you're going to be taking a hit, just like a lot of industries are going to be taking a hit. I think we need to wait to let our scientists and doctors come up with something. And we have a just a logistics problem when it comes to ventilators, when it comes to staff, hospitals. So yeah, and these are good things. People are talking about the handshake. I mean, because some of the Spurgs will mention that the flu is bad. The flu kills people anyway, so what the fuck? And that's true. And I don't know why shaking hands is still a thing. Um, because apparently our hands are just these vessels of destruction, and like touching your face, and we're touching our face all the time, and we're just putting diseases into our systems, and it seems like such an own goal. And it's like, damn, maybe we should rethink that. Do they shake hands in Star Trek? I don't think they do.
Uh,
I think they just look at each other. Yeah, so I'm all in favor of that, and I am in favor of following the success stories. So if Korea is doing something right, and they have been, get that information out, um, talk about it, implement those policies. Let's make it happen. Problem with America is, we're not completely socialized, and we are very fiercely independent, and we all have our little gun collections in our bunkers, and we're half the people for the rapture anyway. And so I don't know if we can move or implement a mass policy in America as well as it could work in, say, Switzerland or Israel or Japan, something like that.
uh, what is your favorite series of
Series of what? You cut
Star
out.
Trek?
Star Trek. My favorite series of Star Trek?
Yeah.
That's like saying, what is your favorite brony convention? I've been to two, by the way. Um, I thought it was a Star Trek for Star Wars, and I was about to unload on Star Trek. But I do like Star Trek. I find it. I like sci-fi, so I can preface it with that. I guess I grew up with the Next Generation, so that was my default. The prior ones are sort of what's the word? Retro. Even the movies, I'm not super impressed by that. Uh, yeah, I don't even think I'm a huge fan of the movies now, the newer movies. It's that Captain Kirk guy. It's the fact that he's small. I have a weird suspicion that that lead actor is like less than 6 feet tall, and I just have a very difficult time respecting people like that, especially if they're trying to be like the alpha Chad dude of a film. So, and I referenced Jeremy Renner. For everyone who knows me, they know I hate Jeremy Renner, and that's one of the major reasons. But I liked the Discovery, the new one. I thought it was good, even with all the SJW bullshit, the female Asian captains and the black women captains and all that. Um, the film, the production value is good. Then again, I like the Orville. I thought they made some fun episodes, and that was an interesting little shift, tonal shift, adding comedy to this sort of realm of television. So I'm a fan of a lot of these things. I'm keeping abreast. I mean, I'm honestly, if I wasn't doing the content I'm doing, I'd probably just follow what's coming out on Netflix and Amazon Prime because we're living in a golden age of content creation and projects are being greenlit that never would have before. Never. Even at something like Stranger Things. Stranger Things was turned down by every major studio. I mean, dozens of times. And finally Netflix was like, "Yeah, we got stupid money. We got fuck you money. So here, go for it." And we're seeing we're seeing the next wave coming. So all the success, like think of Game of Thrones. What do you think? It's not just that Game of Thrones was successful. It's people like this genre. We should probably do more stuff like that. The Vikings. The Vikings was a little rinky-dink show on History Channel or something. Or I mean, it was a minor thing, and now in the next year, 2 years, it's just going to be one massive production after another, and they're going to invest huge in it. And I think we're all going to benefit from that.
Have you seen The Last Kingdom?
I've heard of it. I've I've heard of The Witcher too. I've tried to watch The Witcher. I couldn't get into it. I didn't play video game. I played chess. But Last Kingdom is what British? Is it
No,
magical sort of stuff or?
no, it's based on how do you say this? I think it's 800s England, the conflict between Anglo Saxons and Danes in England. Um,
Well,
People that like Vikings, I've never met anyone who liked Vikings and didn't like it more after seeing it. Well, The Last Kingdom more.
smash cut to Vox coming out with an article about why is it so white? The cast of The Last Kingdom. Um, yeah, I'm open to it. I'm open to trying stuff out. I tried Chernobyl out, but I couldn't get through it. Especially now with Corona, I'm probably not going to enjoy watching it. But I I'm a fan of just The Dark Crystal came out, and I thoroughly enjoyed that. In terms of you don't want to overplay the sort of the knights of the round table and the swords and witches and wizards and all that crap. So you do have to come with originality or something. Has to be a new element to it. And I think one of the lessons of Game of Thrones is do not try to fake the funk. You can't give us authentic stuff backed up by an actual author, a proven author who has created an entire world. So, I mean, I'm guessing there are probably some book properties right now that are being bought up. The rights are, and people are making huge money off that right now because without the skeleton of good writing, it's just you could cast all the pretty people you want. It's not going to save the thing. It won't be worth watching.
Are you a Lord of the Rings fan? And did you hear about the Amazon Prime series coming up?
Is it of Lord of the Rings?
Yeah, if I remember right, I think it's supposed to be based on the Silmarillion, like a prequel. But I remember that it made big news because it's the largest budget for any series ever made. I think it was
Wow,
nearly $1 billion.
that's amazing. Is Peter Jackson involved or no?
I don't think so.
I was a huge fan of The Mandalorian, and I love the fact that Star Wars has just released their grip on that franchise, where everything is sacred and everything has to be, I don't know, just overdone, and everything's riding on this one thing that's going to uphold the brand of Star Wars. I love that they have different little offshoots, and Mandalorian is fun. It's a net good. Um, People have some complaints about it, but it's overall just an absolute fun show. Also, speaking of the Vikings, there's an incredible comedy called The Norseman, which is a Norwegian kind of parody of the Vikings, and they're coming out with the third season. The first two seasons are genius. The third season is out, but it's only in Norwegian, so it will be on Netflix at some point. Lord of the Rings, though, was to me an era. It was great at the time, but great production and whatnot. But it is sort of like antiquated and a little bit like a PG version of Game of Thrones. And Game of Thrones is basically NC-17, and that's what I want. I want my fantasy to have an edge. I want my horror to have an edge. I don't want to go to a PG-13 horror. I don't want to watch softcore porn. I want my porn to be porn, and I want my fantasy and my sci-fi to. I want people to die. I want there to be stakes. I want people to fuck. Is that too much to ask?
You're not asking me, right? That's rhetorical.
Well, either way. But
uh,
yeah.
so, Bait asks, do you think we can define atheism as the belief that no god/gods exist, but not necessarily with certainty?
Oh God. This is the agnostic debate. Yes, technically everyone's agnostic. It doesn't. It's not a win for the religious that we can't say with certainty. I can't say with certainty that I'm alive right now. I mean, I think therefore I am is not good enough. You have to have some fraction of doubt. That doesn't mean anything. It's I am as sure that there is no God that I am sure about anything. So yeah, people talk about the what is it, the null hypothesis or the burden of proof. Who has the burden of proof? All I'm saying is that their claims that there is a God are, which is an easier stance to take than saying I'm telling you there's no God. But basically, you're saying the same thing. It's all just sort of um, mental masturbation and sort of philosophical lint. It's not that interesting. There is no God. Get over it. Why are you seeking answers in this non-existent entity? For the love of God, life is short. Like, move on.
There's a quote that's been brought up in AMA questions a few times before that has always sparked a strong response one way or the other. It's from Ibn Khaldun, an early political scientist, who said that government is an institution which prevents injustices other than it commits itself. What do you think about this statement?
Say it one more time.
Government is an institution which prevents injustices other than those it commits itself.
Oh, that is the fear. That is the thing we have to keep an eye on. That's why you have checks and balances. That's why not all governments are the same. I mean, just to say government, Nazi Germany had a government, um, and so does modern day America. So, yeah, I would say you have to have like firewalls set up in the system. The system itself has to be flexible and it has to have oversight. And this is smart. Um, and so I would say that there's truth to it, but just a random fear of government for the sake of it, um, it can be over easily. And there's a necessity to have a government. It serves a purpose, and it's just a matter of tweaking the dials to get the balance all correct. And a lot of the times people talk about governments and what they prefer, and they've never left their country. They've lived in one country, one system. Now, I would recommend travel. I would recommend trying to live in other countries, see how it works. But there's more than one way to skin this cat, and there's many countries that are very successful, and they do things quite different than the way we do it. So I'm not saying we should all hike up our tax rates to match those countries, but there are lessons to be learned, and we should not just assume that we know the right way. I think it's a ever evolving process. What do they say? In order to make a more perfect union, that kind of a thing.
Mhm. All right, and he couldn't make it tonight, but he always watches the videos. If he can't make it. Mike Escape always wants to ask, would you rather fight a lion or a cheetah?
Oh God. Um, am I in an enclosed environment? Is my question, because I'm thinking of Luke Skywalker down there with that monster in Jabba's lair. Um, it doesn't really matter because they could both outrun me. But so it's probably a moot point. A lion or a cheetah? Is it a male lion? I guess it didn't
I
say
guess we're
lioness.
assuming a male lion, yeah.
Yeah, I guess the lionesses are more problematic. I would probably need to do a quick Google search. So I don't know if I have Wi-Fi out in the savannah or wherever I am. Do a quick search on human death toll from what is it, cheetah or
Yeah,
tiger?
cheetah or lion.
Yeah, I mean a cheetah has less muscle mass. I'm taking my chances against a cheetah, not to outrun the cheetah, but I will fight that cheetah. And his limbs are less muscular, and so I feel like I can contort a limb, maybe get an arm bar. I'd try to manipulate digits, and I'd go for the eyeballs. I would cheat that. I would treat that cheetah like he was a great white shark, and I'd try to punch him in the face. And if I do go out and I am cut and wounded mortally, I do want to put some damage on the cheetah. I want the cheetah to know he was in a fight.
All right. Uh, Nasrallah wants to know, do you think porn addiction is real and does it have negative consequences on serious relationships?
Well, yeah, yes, it's a big yes. But the question is, what even qualifies as porn addiction now? I think that would probably be a humorous concept to even delve into because I mean, growing up in the 80s and 90s, everyone today is living in the golden age of porn. I mean, you have access to so much porn. I guess you could break it down by faps per day, faps per week. And I wonder how much those have changed because, there were some horny ass people before the internet and they were having a field day, masturbating and whatnot. So I don't know if access to more porn leads to more fapping, but I do know that there's a whole generation of dudes who are just like, look, dating and socializing was already difficult for me at best. I wasn't exactly, Brad Pitt. I wasn't just the ladies weren't chucking themselves at me. So it's aggravating, it's humiliating, it costs money, it's a headache, and it's fucking with my self-image. So why don't I just rub one out to this tentacle porn or anime or whatever the degenerates are doing nowadays and call it a day? I mean, instantly, biologically, I feel relief. Psychologically, it's beneficial. Am I lying to myself? Is this real sex? Of course. Of course I'm lying, and of course it's not real sex. But does it matter? Does it really matter in the end? And they don't even know what they're missing. I don't think, there is a point to be had here because I think this dovetails right into a discussion about relationships and monogamy and how much sex is the appropriate amount of sex. Because even in monogamous relationships, dudes are whacking all the time. So where now, what does that leave us? I mean, what is the perfect American ideal in terms of your sexual output? How many times are you supposed to be having sex? How many times are you supposed to be masturbating? Do we have a doctor? Is Mr. Rogers going to come out and tell us an answer to that? Because no one is telling us an answer to that. So it's basically every man for himself. You figure it out as you go, and people are making that determination on their own. And of course, if you give someone the power, you've opened up Pandora's box. And guess what was in Pandora's box? A bunch of porn. And people have been just enjoying it ever since. So yeah, I think it obviously has an impact on your IRL life because all the fun and all the distractions and all the entertainment we get from the internet, of course, it has an impact on how you operate in the real world. This is, you know, we don't have all the time in the world. You have to spend it either online or offline, and that balance is just a total crapshoot for most people.
All right. Prairie Dog asks if you could give us a breakdown of your principle of bigotry of the gaps.
Well, I think I don't. I talk about racism of the gaps. There's God of the gaps, obviously, but he's trying to turn that into a bigotry of the gaps, which goes back into the overuse of the word fascism and Nazi and racist. And bigotry of the gaps, I guess it's just you're not giving the other person any sort of good faith. You assume that they are hateful, that they are unfairly disliking people, and it's not coming from a source that could be something else. It could be just an honest disagreement. It could be ignorance. But I would say people want it to be bigotry. I would say they enjoy having an enemy. The more monstrous your enemy, the easier it is for you to make the case that you are better than them. And I feel like that is the core of a lot of this so-called activism is people just it's like an ongoing resume or an ongoing dating profile. Just they're trying to say, look how great I am. Well, how great are you? What have you done? Did you build a hospital? What did you do? No, but I'm better than this guy. What do you mean you're better than that guy? You're both equally you're flawed people. No, but that guy's a total asshole. What, he's an asshole? What kind of asshole? No, he's a bigot. He's a racist. He's a Nazi. I'm not that. I'm against those things. He's an asshole. I'm not an asshole. I'm a great guy. Now have sex with me. That's the scramble job I see happening. It's not very useful. It leads to straw man's, not steel man's. And it's just a waste of time. Like that whole Vaush and Ethan Ralph thing. He's like, Ethan, you're a Nazi. And Ethan's like, no, I'm not. I've never called myself a Nazi. I'm not a Nazi. What are you talking about? What use is that? Why would you say that? Why would you start a conversation based off something that's not even mutually agreed upon? There's plenty to disagree on where you both agree that there is a disagreement. So words are they have a tremendous amount of power. It's easy to make an accusation. It's far harder to back it up or dismiss it. You know, but an accusation is free. It's easy. It's one word. Just launch it out there and wield its power. Yeah, so I'm kind of against that whole movement.
All right. You mentioned earlier that you were a Yang fan. Yang Gang 2020.
Mm.
What are your thoughts on uh, the concerns over? I just lost the word automation.
Um, I think for certain sectors, this is a new area for me. Obviously, I'm not in the business of job creation or futurism or automation but some of the simple facts about the closing down of malls, the uptick in online shopping, Amazon, whatnot, and knowing just the number of people that have jobs that are retail, uh, along with truck driving. Apparently, this is just an enormous amount of people are doing this stuff, which is just taking something from A to B. I mean, essentially, a lot of these jobs could be done by a monkey or a smart monkey or a machine. And so it might not be the too distant future where these jobs go the way of the dodo, and to not factor that in or be aware of that or plan for that seems a little bit dense. So I'm all ears for people who are ahead of the curve, who have expertise in these areas and have thought it through. And while this doesn't affect me personally, there's many people, many parts of this country where their jobs, they're not these permanent fixtures in society that are protected from competition or from innovation. So they're susceptible, and I'm not saying we should keep these legacy jobs just for the sake of employing these people, but it would be nice if there was some way to transition or to give them other options. Or, I mean, look, it's an ugly world, and a lot of people fall through the cracks. And that's one thing that never gets talked about really online. And that is, what do these people do? Like, however many people are in the chat right now or watching this video, you do something in your life for money, and I don't know what it is, and you're not going to tell me. And it would take a miracle for me to pry that information off of you. Now, you all know what I do. I'm doing, I mean, I talk and I make videos and I have a YouTube channel. But as a lot of people that either aren't happy with their job, aren't proud of their job, unemployed, um, you know, and the guy earlier talked about satisfaction. It's very difficult to find a job that is satisfying. I've had many soul crushing jobs in my life, and that's a very real thing. And it's really a burden to have to live day after day knowing that your existence, your primary thing you do every day, is something that you're fundamentally not stoked about. That's painful. That's crushing.
So I'm looking at the time now. I think we talked about. I'm open to doing this one. We got a lot more questions. Um, just want to mention that in case you had something to do.
Uh, yeah, no, no, I'm still feeling fresh. I haven't even coughed once, and yeah, we could power through some questions, and I'll do my best.
All right. So there was one earlier where actually I'm ecstatic about this. Recently reached out to Noam Chomsky, who's interested in doing an AMA, and one user was curious. What are your thoughts on Noam Chomsky?
My thoughts are that you better hurry up and schedule that because I saw him recently, and he's looking like, I mean, he was abandoned on an island, and I mean, there's something about an old man with a beard, I think, that has a kind of an alarming effect. I don't like Noam Chomsky. I don't like the man. I'm against him. I don't like how he dealt with Sam Harris. I find him to be a cunt. I hate the people who love Noam Chomsky universally. I hate his very simplistic vision of global politics. I hate his fuck America stance. It's noun, verb, fuck America. I hate his take on Israel. I hate the fact that he's the godfather of the regressive movement. I detest Noam Chomsky. I hope he gets the coronavirus. So,
Whoa.
any other follow up questions on Noam Chomsky? Fuck him.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I gathered that you like Sam Harris then.
Love Sam Harris. Sam Harris is an international treasure, a man of uh, unique intellect, a guy who is. It's a bummer he went behind the paywall, but yeah, you call it like you see it. And Sam Harris, I've met him in person once. He is a guy who is an original thinker. Sam Harris expresses his thoughts in a way that is absolutely uncommon. He, I mean, whatever topic he touches, he has a clarity of thought that makes me consider sitting in a cave and following whatever pattern he did in his life, although I'm not into drugs or psychedelics. But I just I find him to be an incredibly refreshing voice and mind on the public stage. And ever since the loss of Hitchens, I've always felt like, we need to fill that gap. And guys like Sam Harris, Douglas Murray, they're doing a great job. And you know, that being said, I miss Hitchens.
All right. Typically, Tiffany asks, if you had to choose between having a strictly political channel or a strictly artistic curation channel, which one would you choose?
Well, I started YouTube just doing music videos. So I'd do mashup videos and sort of I'd find songs that did not have music videos to them and make music videos. And it's been very successful, very gratifying. And it's called Tracy Remix. And yeah, I enjoy that, and that probably is more true to who I am. But if the choice is that or political, I've always had a split between my artistic pursuits and my intellectual pursuits. And I felt it was a false choice to say you have to choose one or the other. And combining the two has been just the luck of the draw for me and what I do now. I can actually combine the two. Is back when I was in college, I had to choose between being a history major and being an animation major. And so I did a double major basically because, we have different sides to our personalities and there's more than just one thing. You don't have to be just one thing. So as far as politics though, I don't even do a political channel. I guess I kind of brush shoulders with politics, but really it's more discussing ideas and things that are happening in the world. Um, I guess I don't know. Does that intellectual? Does that by default intellectual? Not really. It's just you have to talk about things that matter. And yeah, so I'm definitely not into tribal politics. I mean, I detest the far left, and I'm definitely not on the right. And I give a real side eye to any centrist because I feel like they're not even being honest half the time. I feel like there's a lot of fake centrists who are just trying to half-ass their way through politics. So yeah, I just go with the flow and whatever feels right, and I think it's been working out well so far.
All right, this is a real throwback, but one user asks, Ginger or Marianne?
Again, another weird binary. Why do I have to choose one or the other? But back in the day, I probably would have said Ginger because she was taller, so there's more of her basically, and she was glamorous and she had makeup and she seemed like a sexual agent as opposed to Marianne who seemed like a young mom. Um, Nowadays, I would probably try to hit up the threesome, but I would also I think Marianne probably was a little thicker. I think Marianne probably had a little more of a boot, if I recall. It's almost like the same thing with the Scooby Doo gang. They had a redhead. What is that? You had Velma, and then you had the tall chick with the longer hair.
Daphne.
Right. Who's the little one with the bowl cut? With Velma, right?
I think that is Velma, yeah.
Now I've seen some like Velma fan fiction sort of cosplay stuff where she's looking amazing. So you cannot sleep on some of these women in our nostalgia who were not the obvious choice, but they probably were a good ride, good time. So, and Mrs. Howell, we cannot neglect Mrs. Howell. She has experience. She knows her way around, and she has money too. So, look, Mr. Howell finds his way, you know, drowning in some mishap. Then there's an inheritance. There's a life insurance policy. All I'm saying is there are other factors at play here. Also, high maintenance. Ginger's has to be high maintenance. Imagine Ginger with a cell phone. It would be selfies and duck faces all day and all night. Was Marianne, you probably have a conversation. You could probably like cook a meal with her, and she's not so vain. So yeah, we got to factor that in.
I think you've touched it a bit, but Josie wants to know, what is your opinion on Trump?
Oh, for fuck's sake. My opinion on Trump is not different than what it was before he was president, which was he's a con man, a rich asshole, a guy who's conceited, a guy who's maniacally egotistical, very creepy guy who would go into beauty pageants that he owned and look at the underage girls dressing. Um, a guy with fuck you money who it was tacky, just a terrible sense of style. He's a hypocrite. angry. He's not that bright. Um, he's just your average run of the mill rich cunt. And his presidency has panned out exactly the way we all predicted it would. So, yeah, I say good riddance, and I'm not down with man.
Okay. This should be interesting. Flying monk. You said your girlfriend is vegan and you'll usually eat the meals she makes, but don't pursue that lifestyle. What's stopping you from cutting meat and dairy from your diet?
Uh, I would draw a huge line between meat and dairy. Um, to get me off dairy would be a much harder ask than get me off meat. So there's that. It's just the aesthetics of it. So eating dead meat, just this flesh, it does get disgusting. I've always been disgusted by it. Like I've always, you ever go to KFC and people will get these chicken bones and these legs and breasts? I always was horrified by that. The second they came out with those chicken strips, or even like a chicken McNugget, I was way into that because watching a guy eat through the gristle and the bone, they're sucking on the bone, they're eating just fat and all sorts of nasty shit. I'm not into it. So even though I like the taste of meat and have eaten meat my whole life, if I see blood, I'm grossed out. If I see gristle and fat, I'm grossed out. Ribs, every once in a while, you get into caveman mode. But outside of that, I prefer the elegance of I don't want to see the face of the animal. I'm trying to distance myself from the reality of what it what it is. So eating fish, I'm far more comfortable with than eating anything else like lamb or something. I'd just rather not know. And so that's really just me playing games with myself. Intellectually, I still know what it is that I'm doing. And so that's why it's been, a good thing that I've been with a vegan girl for all this time. And, she sort of slowly and quietly and with subtlety removed me from a carnivorous diet by and large. And it's been a very easy transition because she's a professional chef. And so the food tastes great. And once again, if you're happy with what you're eating and it tastes good, then are you really missing out on much? So yeah, I'm not so worried about it. And I'm pro vegan. I think it's the end game. I think it's the ultimate goal. I'm very critical of the vegan movement and how they try to persuade people and where their priorities are in getting to this end goal. They seem to be against any brand of incrementalism, and they seem to be just rageful over the fact that they're outnumbered like 1,000 to 1, whatever it is. So I think they should learn lessons from atheism. And we're in a similar boat. Atheists, especially the evangelical type atheists, don't hold your breath. People are going to believe in religion for a long, long.
All right. Was Western? So I just gotta ask this with oh religion. It's waxed and waned over the years, and there are revivals again and again. Do you think that there will be another revival which will cause an uptick in, I guess, religiosity?
Yeah, well, coming out of the third world, we see some alarming trends. The Muslim world, it's sort of, even though there are non believers, they are dissuaded from stepping out of the closet for a few obvious reasons. So that's a hard thing to break, the passing it down from parental units to the children. Because when you break away from that, you're breaking away from your culture, your family. It's very an unnatural move to make. So if it's more acceptable in the mainstream to be an atheist, to to not be religious, then I think you can maybe compare it to the gay movement. So there were gays all throughout history, and we just didn't know about them. And now that it's not a big deal to come out as you're gay, you see people doing it, and it's just become demystified and destigmatized. And I would hope that religion could follow that path. Maybe a crisis like coronavirus or uh, something else, a global war, even severe climate change, maybe that might put the fear of God back in some people, and you'll see some people return to the church. I wouldn't be surprised by that. But long term, the numbers are heading in the direction of atheism. There's more atheists today than ever before. Of course, there's probably more religious people than ever before, but that's just because they breed very rapidly. But the percentages are heading our way. The whole point is, though, these are such massive problems that it's like on an individual level to waste time worrying about it seems like a utter waste. I don't know.
All right. Western Zombie asks, "What's your stance on migration, and has coronavirus changed your view on it?"
No, not coronavirus hasn't changed my view. Migration should be regulated. It should have. I think it should have. I think one of the main problems is we don't discuss the criteria. Who is making our policy on immigration? When is that being voted on? When is there a revote? Like, we need to relook at some of these things. Who are we taking in? Why are we taking them in? Why are we not taking in certain people? Because the policies vary greatly from country to country. I mean, if you commit a crime, Australia will be like, "You're out. Fuck off. You're banned from our country. We don't want you." They're pretty adamant about it. But then again, Australia's bringing in refugees, and they were more than happy to bring all sorts of sketchy people from the Sudan. And now they have, what do you know, problems with the South Sudanese people in Melbourne and elsewhere with their gangs. And it's been a massive problem. And they brought this problem literally to their shores. Just like the Germans brought in, hey, do you think there's going to be a backlash or consequences to bringing in just millions of people from the Muslim? Yeah, there will be. And I saw it firsthand. And I mean, even with as functional and successful as Germany is, even they have problems dealing with this. And so, yeah, I was watching a video today of insane. They were talking about a 19-year-old Guatemalan woman. Her and her husband tried to make it to America, and they tried to jump over, not jump over, climb over the wall near El Paso. And this woman falls off the wall and dies, and her baby's dead. And they they blamed the wall, and they blamed like Trump, and they blamed the fact that we have national borders, as if we owe this random non-citizen of our country to walk in, totally absolving her of the choice to, at 8 months pregnant, to try to climb a border wall. Like, she endangered the life of herself and her child, and she died. This is Darwinism. I don't understand it. I and people will take a story like this and be like, "Oh no, but she was so young, and look at the baby, and look at death. We're against death." You still need rules and regulations. You cannot have just random open borders, and you cannot make exceptions, because then guess what? Everyone's going to come in just willy nilly, and it's going to be anarchy. So I believe in law and order, and I believe in rules, and I believe in borders. And I think that's a baseline thing. As a Democrat, I think that's a baseline thing. I don't. I think people are way off base with their policy on it.
All right. Faye wants to know: would you continue aligning yourself with Democratic? Keeps steadily getting more progressive.
I got most of that. Democratic Party is getting more progressive. Will I continue to align myself with that? Well, I mean, given the caveat that I'm against the progressive side of the party, given the caveat that they should have their own party, then yeah, I mean, it's very clear that I am against Noam Chomsky, Cenk Uygur, AOC, Bernie Sanders, anyone on the far left. I'm against. Just we can go over policy after policy. It's not just a personality thing. Sometimes it is, but it's not personal. It's just business, and I don't agree with their policies. I don't agree with reparations. Most of the country doesn't agree with reparations. Now, that would skew more if you're on the right of politics. The chances are you really don't agree with reparations. But if you're on the left, I don't think we should. I think it's a terrible idea. And if my party, quote unquote, says, well, the party line is pro reparations, man, then I still am against them. And does that mean I evacuate and I'll leave the left me? No, because I'm not a child, and because I still believe in gun control, in saving the environment, in the tax codes that would be implemented by the left as opposed to there's other issues that matter. And you could put them down, you could write them down on a napkin. It's not that many, but it's about 10 at least that are of importance. So if one issue doesn't go your way, but that 9 others do, I mean, what are you going to do? The choice is then vote for someone you agree with on 80% of stuff versus 20% of stuff. That's it's not that exciting. It's a very easy choice.
Okay. So I don't know who Rodney Reed is, but Prairie Dog wants to know why is it so easy for Kim Kardashian, Oprah, Dr. Phil, etc., to get sentences of obviously guilty murderers like Rodney Reed commuted?
Well, Rodney Reed is not out of the woods. And why is it so easy? It's again the power of the internet, the power of the pressure that a mob can put on any one individual. So we have breaking points. There are a few human beings just who control the fate of a guy like Rodney Reed. So it's a politician, a district attorney, a judge. These people have contact information. They get flooded. And this is very abnormal. People who don't spend their lives online, it's very strange to be accosted by 10, 100, 1,000 people all asking you to do one thing. And it puts a strain on how well they do their job, the integrity, if they have any. Because Rodney Reed is guilty of rape and murder, and he has not been put to death yet, even though he should have been years ago. And it's a sad state of affairs, and that's why I'm chasing Kim Kardashian down wherever she goes. The Innocence Project has blood on their hands. Oprah Winfrey is an absolute disaster on this front, and it's the hideous truth is these people who claim to be in favor of justice and justice for everything, racial justice, environmental justice, gender justice, whatever justice, they are the worst defenders for justice. These people are letting murderers free, and they're taking a shit on the victims and the family members of the victims in all of these cases. It's an insult to all of us. So it needs to be exposed. The media is negligent on this, and that's why it's left to private citizens with little YouTube channels to step up and say, "Hey, this is a terrible thing that's happening right here, and you should be aware of it."
So I heard in there that you support the death penalty. Is that correct?
Um, yeah, I'm not that stern one way or the other. My instinct has always been pro death penalty, but I am aware of the counter arguments, and I am sympathetic to them in some regard. So the system we have with the death penalty is so flawed and is so drawn out and takes forever. You know, it should take a certain amount of time. There should be a certain amount of appeals, right? But I mean, we're talking 20 years go by, and you start getting into stuff like, oh, your belief in God comes into it. So it gets really complicated. What is punishment? Does punishment make sense? Uh, is taking away their freedom not worse than killing them? Is killing them an easy way out? How much money are we spending on them? How much money does it cost to kill a man? How much money does it cost to imprison a guy for the duration of his life? These are considerations I'm willing to look at. Plus the fact that there have been innocent people put to death. Um, that is something that we have to factor in. But like a guy like Anders Breivik, what is he doing? Playing video games right now? Fapping? I mean, I don't know. My caveman side of myself says these people need to take a dirt nap, and it's an interesting one. I think support of the death penalty, I would imagine, has dropped over the past while. Maybe that's in accordance with the advent of DNA testing, and the DNA testing has sometimes revealed that we've made mistakes, and that has maybe softened people on the death penalty. But I think we used to kill way more than we kill now. California banned it, for example.
So this might be a hard question, but it'll probably be a quick one. What are some things? Well, you don't like Trump. What are some things he's done that you strongly agree with?
I mean, there's some basic stuff like emergency funding for coronavirus. I mean, was that not passed unilaterally or bipartisan? Sort of everyone signed off on it.
Yeah.
Finally, I mean, you can still criticize the timing and the fact that he clearly tried to downplay this to try to keep the markets alive and well. Um, Things that he's done that I'm in agreement with. Um, hmm. Yeah, that's a stumper. Uh,
Are you pro-Israel? And do you have any thoughts
yeah,
on the recognition of Jerusalem?
yeah. I don't think that was necessary. I think that was a political stunt, and it caused violence, and it was um, it was really it didn't really establish anything. It's just it already was the capital. I don't know, but yeah, if he's pro-Israel, then in theory, I agree with his stance on that. Um, like I said, immigration, he's pro having borders. I agree with that. Um, he is, the people accuse him of being nationalistic, which is a weird accusation for a president of a nation. Um, so, there's probably some derpy version of his patriotism that I am in favor of being pro USA. So, in theory, when he's going into trade deals or negotiations of any kind, he's trying to, well, as critics would say, benefit himself personally, but he's also trying to look out for America. So, from that standpoint, um, I would say, yeah, he's on the right path. But there's just so much more that I disagree with that um, it is sort of the exception to the rule.
Okay. So you break strongly with your party on Israel, it seems. Well, first, I guess, do you think that's accurate that your party tends to be anti-Israel?
I would say that skews to the far left.
Okay.
I'm. It's well known that they have problems with Israel, and and many have problems with the Jews. But yeah, I would say, and why is I just don't get my marching orders from the Democratic Party, like in general. So like you should probably know that about me. Like I just don't. I assess Israel based on me, Devin Tracy, my experience, my knowledge, my independent research on the nation of Israel, and I've come to the conclusion, both historically and currently, that I am in support of the nation of Israel for like a long list of reasons. I like the people of Israel. I like the culture. I like what they stand for. I like the shared values. And yeah, they're wrong. Anyone who's not in favor of Israel is wrong. I could give a fuck if they're Democrats. So look, there are people who are in favor of Israel for the wrong reason, like many on the right are, and they're waiting for Armageddon so Jesus can come back, and they're like, "Ooh, Israel is mentioned in the Bible, and I love the." So I was going to go to Israel. I've been close to going there a couple times. I probably will go there eventually, but um, yeah, just more aggravation. We shouldn't have two parties. These people are foreign to me. They need to be gone.
You said you got a degree in
Do you say degree in history?
yeah, you said that you
Yeah.
got a degree in history.
Yeah.
Um, just something to be aware of. I also am a history major and interested. I'm not sure which areas you're interested, but I've been interested in seeing some ancient sites like Persepolis. You cannot travel to Iran if you've been to Israel.
You cannot travel to Iran if you've been to Israel. Is that true?
That's Iranian policy.
Crazy. Well, yeah, Iran is not on the top of my list of places to visit. Um, but yeah, history is such a big topic that it's. I mean, to get anywhere in history, you have to get specific in a region or a time period, and there's just so much of it that it's funny. Like two history majors could have nothing in common because what they studied is just universally different. But I was just fascinated by it, and as a topic, it's kind of the most general thing you could do. Just study everything, the history of all things that have happened up until right now. That to me is basically life, and it seems like a logical place to invest time into.
Have you had a particular area that interested you?
I kind of did. I kind of dumped all over the place, but I did study Vietnamese history, particularly the war, and that was of particular interest to me. Um, but yeah, it's a few years ago now, and I remember at the time being satisfied with the knowledge of it all, acquiring the knowledge, and just learning about what has happened, what came before. But at that time, you're basically also being pushed into how are you supposed to make money, and so I felt that pressure, and I realized that I couldn't get too lost in this pursuit without that other need rearing its head, and so I think I basically twisted off my academic pursuits and went into more practical pursuits of how I can actually earn a living. I wasn't going to become a history teacher.
Right.
Of course, now you could say, "Oh, you could do a history podcast." I mean, those are pretty popular, but that didn't exist back then.
uh, what are your thoughts generally on the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan?
Did you say the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan?
Yes.
Um, yeah, I mean, it's easy to nitpick now and to Monday morning quarterback and say, "Oh, we shouldn't have done any of it." I'd say it's a monumental waste of human capital, human life, treasure, resources, ultimately unnecessary. Iraq, different than Afghanistan. Afghanistan, there's a viable reason. The threat, the war of the war on terror, had the right intention. You had to dismantle these terrorist groups. You know, nations giving cover to these groups, and they're organized, and they have multiple millions of dollars, and they had a bloodlust to kill us. Yes, it was the early stages of even understanding Islamism and what it's about and why these people hate us. And this is the beginning of a long journey into. It's not just Al Qaeda. It's not just Osama. It's Islam to a large degree. It's different sects of it. It's different offshoots, different radical groups of it. But I mean, this is an ancient problem, and it hasn't just been in the form of terrorist groups. There's been, go ask the Spanish, go ask the Israelis, go ask, I mean, the Russians, the Chinese, anywhere that the Muslim world has ventured into, the same story unfolds. And so it was a long time coming, but it eventually would have to come. I mean, it's a small world after all. That's a great policy. The problem is the reason why some of the places of the world are great is because they're far away from the fucked up parts of the world. So the space and distance between us was necessary insulation. And now that that's gone, whether because of the internet or just ease of travel, economics, we're seeing conflict, we're seeing friction. And this was just a nasty version of that. So there's always going to be the fog of war. There's always going to be messy. I think the reason for going to Afghanistan is way more valid than the reason for going to Iraq. And then the handling of both of those are way open for criticism after going in. So what's the exit plan? What's the strategy? What are we doing? How naive of us to think to nation build in these places. This is not like Japan and Germany here. We're going into a totally different territory. So it seems like war is shit and to be avoided if at all possible. And we should definitely get our troops out of there if there's any stragglers left behind.
All right. So for anyone that's hopped in, we're talking with Atheism is Unstoppable. Sorry, words are hard sometimes. Uh, and if you'd like to ask any questions, write them in the text chat above us, AIU AMA questions. I think I don't know how much time we got left, but I got the sense that we may be running short on it. Um, Next question we have is from Whiskey Renegade. How do we solve the problem of our Congress people spending all this time calling for donations? Uh, should taxpayers fund election campaigns?
Yeah, Andrew Yang had a great policy with that. Something about democracy dollars. I think we need to fundamentally look at a totally different system in regards to how campaigns are funded and the time period with which you're allowed to campaign. Because if everyone's playing by the same rule book, I mean, everyone's playing by the same rule book now. Basically, there are no rules, and it's you know get donations just nonstop and sell yourself out along the way if you have to. So you got to set something up. It has to make sense. And money is just a blockade for this. So money is what keeps the system in place. And this is one thing that the people on the far left are not wrong about. It's a major kernel of truth, which is money in politics is just inherently corrupting, and it's not the wisest way to do this. And it's not like we have to reinvent the wheel. Other countries do this way better than us. So yeah, I think it's kind of a disgrace, and the time is now. And even when the Supreme Court passed that Citizens United, or what was that?
Yep, Citizens United.
Right. Even right after that happened, people were like, "What the fuck? How did that just happen?" That sounds like a terrible idea. I'm talking about like the next day, people were like, "Wait, what? Horrible!" And it's still the law of the land, and we've got to overturn it. And I support that effort. And yeah, I'm sick of Congress people just showboating and campaigning just year round. And I'd rather they do actual work. And yeah, so I'm in favor.
Okay. Um, so I never try. Well, sorry, no, actually, I always try not to argue here. But one of the things um, I've heard that I've always just found to be really interesting, I guess, an argument in favor of Citizens United decision is that the idea is that money is speech, and one of the things that people say is that if you don't allow people to spend money or donate to campaigns, the whole principle is it's disproportionate, right? The rich get to influence it, but then if you bar that, there still can be disproportionate influence, such as, for example, Cenk Uygur. I think there was some analysis which said that his support of Bernie in 2016 was worth tens of millions of dollars.
Mhm.
Um, does that pose a problem for you? The amount of influence people have without spending money?
Yeah, it's worth considering. Free press and whatnot. You know, it's a private company that he owns, and so he can put on whatever he wants. So that is an expression of his free speech. I think people have more of an issue when the mainstream media is giving free airtime, billions of dollars worth of advertising, essentially, to political candidates, and they're doing it for their own selfish reasons. So, yeah, I mean, there could be some consideration about non-financial influence that is unfair in nature. I mean, we're looking at foreign influence. We're looking at
Mhm.
Facebook and these sort of things where we're trying to get something fair, and we're trying to also accommodate what is fair in the 21st century, given social media right now, given just how people get their news. Obviously, we're never going to get a totally fair system, but we can at least have some scaffolding, some regulations that would give us a semblance of an honest election. And I think Canada, look at England, look at Germany, again, Australia. I think that they might have some better ideas on the topic.
All right. ONG asks, does your dad watch your videos, and what does he think of it?
I don't think he does. I don't think he does at all. Um, yeah, my some of my videos are long. It's just not part of his ritual, his routine. So every once in a blue moon, I'll send him a video, but no, no, it's okay. Um, I don't, I don't mind. I don't make the videos with him in mind. Uh, I sent him an article the other day about some king in Africa. Some king got released from prison, and he was pissed at his son for how he was handling the throne while he was absent. And he took a knife and he stormed into the palace and he started slashing people up, including his son's wife and stuff. And they were like trying to jump out the window and whatnot. And I was just like, Dad, what's going on in Africa, man? And he's from South Africa. And it's kind of an amazing story. But yeah, I'm not really for everyone, and I'm okay with that.
All right. Um, I gotta ask, what do you think about what's going on in South Africa? We've had a few South Africans actually on the server. It was always really interesting because this is, the there's issues with, just for anyone that doesn't know what we're talking about here, the South African population is, I believe, about 8% white, and the rest African, black. And the land in like 1990 was roughly like 90% owned by whites, largely because of apartheid government. And recently, uh, the government has started to redistribute the land. Just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, it's not lawful. It's immoral. It's counterproductive. It's um, it's going to sabotage the country, just like it did in Zimbabwe. So you take away these farms from their owners who paid money, like they, it is their land, and you replace them with people that aren't good at farming. They don't know what they're doing, and they don't produce as much food, and there are shortages, and starvation follows. I mean, it's that dire a situation. That's why the king of the Zulus came out against it. He's like, "No, don't take the goddamn farms. You kidding me? We need to eat. This is crazy." They passed a law where you had to have proportional representation demographically in every industry. So the electricians had to be, we need more black electricians. And what happens? Oftentimes, what happens is the quality goes down because you're putting people in not based on merit, but based on their identity. And you could see this coming from a mile away. So Africa is a disaster, especially when compared to the first world. If you want to compare it to other African nations, South Africa is on the upper end of those things, which is more of a statement of how dreadful it is in those other African nations. And I think to look at South Africa and be consumed by the racial aspect of it is very telling about people's enduring white guilt. The problems in South Africa are not racial in nature. They're about corruption, about the black leaders who are corrupt and ineffective. And it's about the low standard of living, the low, um, what's it called, mortality rate, or not mortality rate, the age, life expectancy, disease control, the magical thinking. They're talking about African science and shit like that, and voodoo and all sorts of whacked out ways of thinking that have prevented that country from it being remotely competitive with the nations that you and I live in. So, I'm not really interested in listening to people who have never been to Africa, who don't know Africa, who don't have a realistic idea of what it's like down there. The crime rate, the murder rate. Do you realize how many people die or are murdered every day in South Africa? It's insane. So any conversation about Africa has to be in the context of given that this is Africa. And so it's a totally different world. And if you're not informed about that world, then most people's basic bitch white guilt perspective is just not interesting.
Okay. Um, I don't want to espouse basic bitch white guilt here, but
Mhm.
how much of not just South Africa, but Africa's troubles in general are the result of colonization or colonialism?
None. Colonization helped Africa. That's a tired meme. And even the people in Africa, even the hardcore radicals can't even buy into that anymore. They're like, this is not the problem. If you want to look, there's books written, and I've read a couple of the legacy of colonialism, and we're living in the post-colonial era. And country after country, they've gone off a ledge. Things have gotten worse. And you can sit there and blame the boogeyman of the white invader, and but it has no meat to it. There's nothing behind that. That's just a scapegoat. And there are real problems on the ground, and people are unwilling to face them. And it's the same thing we find in black communities in America. It's just a total aversion to any responsibility over your own well-being individually or as a community, your own success. They just blame others and they just play the victim. And it's so tiresome.
All right, Mode. I think this is a new user and a longtime fan of yours. They
Mhm.
said, on the subject of South Africa, I remember you commenting that you are not in favor of gun control for South Africans. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, I mean, people get confused with my stance on gun control, which is I'm in favor of gun control for regulations. I have proposed that we have a 25-year-old minimum to own a gun, and I think that would be helpful, very helpful, because young men are basically the lion's share of the problem when it comes to gun ownership. And but there's a principled stance I have on guns. Like, I don't think the Second Amendment's a good idea. I think the basic idea of a civilization is that we agree to live in harmony with each other, and we agree that certain people should have guns and be authority figures, and other people should not. The idea that everyone should own a gun, even in the Wild West, they figured out this is a bad idea. If you go into Tombstone, they say, "Look, you're coming into town. We're trying to gamble here. We're trying to hook it up at the whorehouse. We have families and children. Put your gun down. Okay, give your gun up as you enter this town." So we all live. I mean, so that to me seems like a good idea, but that's not the reality of what it's like now, because we've had these bad policies for so long that guns are just, we're inundated with them. Everyone has guns, and there are threats, really credible, horrible threats. So the reason I say I'm not in favor of restricting gun use in South Africa is because I view it as just a glorified failed state. And home invasions are just rampant, and the government and the police are just out. They're outgunned and they're outmanned, and they cannot contain the threats. And so it is upon you to then defend yourself. This is why guns made sense back in the 1700s. You had Native American threats. You had, the Minutemen. There was actually a reason to have a. But I would hope that a civilization would find a balance that is better than just anarchy and living in a failed state where it's every man for himself. And there are many that have done this. And I could list them off, and I've lived in them, and it's just so much more of a relief to be in a place where, even if some sexual failure spurg decides to rage quit, he's not going to have the high powered weaponry, and you're just not going to be threatened by that. And I just think that that's such a fundamental thing of a state. The idea of a nation is to protect its citizens. And there's two ways to look at it. What's the best way to protect your citizens? Give everyone a gun, or give almost no one a gun? And I fall just logically and obviously in the side of almost no one should have a gun. Should be as hard to get a gun as it is to become a pilot of an airplane. Should be highly regulated. It's a massive responsibility that we're imparting on people. And it seems to me as a basic tenet of the social contract of coexisting with other people. It's the golden rule. Do not pull out some weapon designed to kill a human being and expect me to be cool with it. I just I just think it's retarded.
You mentioned earlier that you do eat a mostly vegan diet. It just dawned on me, and I'm curious, what do you have for breakfast if you're not having any eggs or bacon? Just confused here.
The bacon is the one to go. Eggs I will have on occasion, and I'm not horrified by the eating of eggs. So eggs, it's a totally lower tier in terms of sinning against the vegans, I think. But I'll have just fruit or yogurt, or I'm a pretty light eater in the morning, which is stark contrast to my girlfriend who is a German, and they eat huge ass breakfasts where they just bring everything out, and it's just like a whole event. So, of course, I used to eat cereal all the time as well. Little cracker and cheese, I'm good with it. Couple bites, I'm ready to go.
All right. Giacomo wants to know, apart from Sam Harris and Christopher Hitchens, which other intellectuals do you rate and think are a treasure, and why?
Well, did you say Douglas Murray? Douglas Murray is up there, and he's tackling issues. I just saw a video of him the other day where identity, um, national identity, immigration, Islam, transgenderism. I mean, these are not little kid issues. These are the issues that are going to get you canceled just to even approach them. And he is neck deep in them, and he's doing it with grace, style, and eloquence. And so, if you're not familiar with Douglas Murray, I would recommend you dive into him. I think there's wisdom to be had from people who are not obvious candidates, from people who don't sound smart. They don't have the accent. So there are comedians out there, very, very smart, very bright. There's even guys like Joe Rogan and Gavin McInnes. Now, I disagree with them on a bunch of stuff, but they possess a certain common sense, and maybe it's a generational thing, but I'm not going to discount the fact that there is a need for the older generations to impart wisdom and common sense into the younger generations. That is basically called parenting. But a lot of times we know that parents are failing at that task. And so it takes figures like these guys, there are podcasters out there who who are just right. Issue by issue, they are correct. And so, yeah, I mean, other people that come to mind, oh man, treasures, absolute treasures. This Coleman Hughes guy, he's a young guy on the scene, and I like him. Also, there's a couple of black dudes, professors, Glenn Lowry and John McCorder. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And they are, again, these are men older than myself who are educated and are experts and have just great minds. And so, why would you not take advantage of listening and soaking up what these guys have to say, their perspective? Because wisdom is different than just knowledge, and there's a lot of fake smart people out there, and I think detecting who the authentic ones are versus the posers, that's probably stage one.
Hmm. Um, Ramasov wants to know if the U.S. invaded Iraq to depose Saddam, why didn't they invade Syria to depose Bashar al-Assad?
Well, I mean, going into Syria is a no-win. Um, we once invaded Iraq and didn't get rid of Saddam, and that was seen as a win for us. I mean, it was George Bush Senior getting in and getting out. He went in, he kicked ass, and then he left. And that was, I mean, God, if you had a choice between doing that and just sticking around in a quagmire, I mean, no one wants that. No one wants more Vietnam type scenarios. So why not go into Syria? Why not go into any of these? I mean, there's because it's a mess. It's because it's a no win, and it's going to cost human lives and money and political capital that no one's willing. No one's going to have your back. You're going to have to beat the drums of war and come up with some reason. Why don't we go into Somalia? Just call it a humanitarian crisis and be like, look, we're here to save the people. How did that turn out? It's a mess. We should worry about ourselves. We should consider America first, and that is why I'm here to say that I'm officially a graper. No, I'm kidding. I'm not. I'm not into that.
All right. Mode says you're a well-known traveler. Which, in your opinion, are the top three places to live in places you have visited? I'm sorry, of the places you have visited, which are the top three?
Um, I would say it is basically 1A, 1C between Australia, Canada, and Switzerland and Germany. Um, I those places are always on the top of the list. I mean, Vienna is up there too. There's great places in Germany to live. I've had a blast there. Toronto is on my radar. I've been there, and I'm planning on going back. England, England and America, you can have equally amazing lives in England and America, but it's only certain parts, and it's only if you have enough money. Whereas the other places, the standard, obviously, you have a better life in Canada and Australia and Switzerland if you have more money, but even the baseline, even the average life there is just superior. And that's what all the studies show. And you go there and you see it for yourself. There's other factors, of course, at play, like familiarity, language, culture, nostalgia, comfort level, family. So for me, I'm always going to be connected to LA and London because my family is there. And there's definitely charm that is very like irreplaceable. So the uniqueness of those places can just override and trump everything that I'm talking about. Because for the outsider, they're like, look, I don't know anything about Australia. I don't know anything about Auckland or, Switzerland or Germany. Like, this would be a nightmare for me. So, yeah, it becomes a strange thing. It's been a weird thing for me the past 5, 7 years, say. is having the choice of living wherever I want to, whatever country I want to. And it's been a blessing and a curse because you actually have to assess why you live where you live. And most people don't even have that as an option. They're like, look, mortgage, I got a kid, I got a my all my friends and family are here. Like my job is here. What am I going to leave? That'd be a major rupture in the flow of their life. And for me, I'm actually seeking the opposite. I'm seeking stability after years of exploration, say.
Whiskey Renegade wants to know ever.
You absolutely cut out. What?
Oh,
what
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now?
yeah, yeah. Go ahead. What does he want?
Whiskey Renegade wants to know: will Africa ever have a superpower?
Wakanda. S- Africa and superpower. They have a lot of human resources, so they have a lot of a potential growing middle class. There's commerce happening there. There's banking. There's cell phone companies are making a fortune down there because they do have a lot of numbers. So from that standpoint, they could be considered relevant on the world stage. But individually, their societies are so deeply flawed. From sewage to their justice system to just the crime rates to just yeah, it's really a mess. I went to Senegal and it's a major departure from other countries, and I'm living in Latin America right now, and it's just light years ahead of Africa. So yeah, maybe in the future it's not beyond um, the realm of possibility. Like a place like Nigeria could be competitive at some point, but they have a lot of obstacles in their way, and their own leaders are not helping on this because they're okay with where the bar is set right now. They're not asked to make huge leaps in progress. They're not expected to, and so people are content with the status quo.
What are your thoughts on people who say, "I'm not religious, I'm spiritual"?
I think it comes from a good place. I think there's, for as lame as it sounds, and it sounds like something you put on a bio for a dating site to not deter religious pussy. Um, I would say there is something to it. There actually is. I'm not sure that the people that say that can defend it accurately, but yeah, spiritual. Like just because you don't believe in God does not mean you do not have a sacred view of life and death and existence in and of itself. You're not. I mean, we sit here in awe of the scientific reality of the scale and size of the universe. So we sit in wonder and awe of it all, and things are precious to us. Things are moments, memories, laughter, connection, forming bonds, just the act of creation, art, music. These are all things that touch us in a way that could loosely be described as spiritual. But the problem with that word is that it's so tainted with religious stupidity and it comes with a lot of baggage. So I think it might behoove us to come up with more accurate terms, a little more nuanced in how we describe things that have great meaning and importance to us, but are not tangible. They're more abstract.
All right. So, last question we'll ask here. Faye
Mhm.
wants to know, have you ever wanted to be a father?
Father?
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, it's crossed the mind. I have I've been practicing becoming a father for quite some time, um, in terms of the act, but I have been witness to my sister's children, and I have sort of big brothered a lot of people. I've played the role of uncle, and I I recognize and I respect the life changing, permanent decision of becoming a father and what that does to just your identity and your role in this world. And so I'm busy and I have other things to occupy my time with, and it's not something that is a make or break. And uh, for whatever reason, the women I have selected, they have not been keen or gung ho on having kids. And this is a trend. I didn't vet them for this. Although I had an abortion. I had not personally, but you understand. Um, Several years back, I had an abortion, so that was, you know, amazing. That was a good choice. But yeah, it's the grass is always greener on the other side. You talk to people with kids and they say, "Oh God, I love them. I'm not sure I would have them." You talk to people who don't have kids, they say, "Oh, maybe I'm missing out on something." So it's always a guessing game, but I am at peace with the way things are playing out.
All right. Well, Tracy or AIU, I think that there's actually been uh, good questions and pretty solid answers. Went pretty well in depth. We definitely appreciate you coming on. Would love to have you go again in the future. For anyone that's enjoyed this, please do check Announcements channel. Uh, his YouTube and his Discord is linked there. And if you're listening to the YouTube video, it's going to be linked in the description.
Yes, thank you. Very good. A couple hours. Uh, it was fun, and I appreciate the questions. And I wish everyone well in this time of the coronavirus and all that good stuff, bad stuff. And thanks for hanging out, and it was a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. You have a good one.
Take care.
All right, guys.